So as you all know, Republicans lost control of the House on Tuesday night, and even if it wasn't a complete blowout, that's still a defeat, and it doesn't bode well for Donald Trump and the Republican Party's agenda. So he obviously probably wasn't too happy about this, and the day after the election, he was visibly irritable, and essentially has been going on a rampage ever since Republicans lost control of the House. And there's a number of things that he's been doing. And the first thing is when he was at a press conference, he was just acting more petulant, more aggressive than I think he has for a really long time. I haven't seen him this combative in months, and you can tell that the loss probably got under his skin. So pay attention to this video, and you're going to see an exchange he had with CNN's Jim Acosta, and it was just cringeworthy.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to challenge you on one of the statements that you made in the tail end of the campaign in the midterms.
Here we go.
If you don't mind, Mr. President, that this caravan was an invasion. As you know, Mr. President,
I consider it to be an invasion.
As you know, Mr. President, the caravan was not an invasion. It's a group of migrants moving up from Central America towards the border with the U.S.
Thank you for telling me that. I appreciate it.
Why did you characterize it as such?
Because I consider it an invasion. You and I have a difference of opinion.
But do you think that you demonized immigrants in this election
to try to keep... I want them to come into the country, but they have to come in legally. You know, they have to come in, Jim, through a process. I want it to be a process. And I want people to come in, and we need the people. Wait. You know why we need the people, don't you? Because we have hundreds of companies moving in. We need the people.
But your campaign had an ad showing migrants climbing over walls and so on.
Well, that's true. But they weren't actors.
They're not going to be doing that.
They weren't actors. Well, no, it's true. Do you think they were actors? They weren't actors. They didn't come from Hollywood. Right. These were people. This was an actual, it happened a few days ago. And
they're hundreds of miles away, though. They're hundreds and hundreds of miles away. That's not an invasion.
Honestly, I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
All right.
And if you did it well, your ratings would be much better.
If I may ask one other question, Mr. President, if I may ask one other question, are you worried?
That's enough. That's enough.
Mr. President, I was going to ask one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am. Mr. President,
that's enough.
Mr. President, I had one other question, if I may ask, on the Russia investigation. Are you concerned that you may have...
I'm not concerned about anything with the Russian investigation because it's a hoax. That's enough. Put down the mic.
Mr. President, are you worried about indictments coming down in this investigation?
Mr. President.
I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN. Go ahead.
I think that's unfair.
You're a very rude person. The way you treat Sarah Huckabee is horrible. And the way you treat other people are horrible. You shouldn't treat people that way. Go ahead. Go ahead, Peter. Go ahead.
In Jim's defense, I've traveled with him and watched him. He's a diligent reporter who busts his
butt. Well, I'm not
like
a big fan of yours either, so
I understand.
To be honest.
So let me ask you a question, if I can. You repeatedly said
you aren't the best,
Mr. President. You repeatedly over the course of the...
just sit down, please. Well, when you report fake news, when you report fake news, which CNN does a lot, you are the enemy of the people. Go ahead.
That was certainly something. I don't really know what to say about that. Donald Trump, he doesn't act presidential, and nobody is really surprised by that. But there was a moment during that exchange he had there where he left the podium, and it looked as if he was going to confront Jim Acosta to his face. But then once the mic was taken away from Jim Acosta, he went back to the podium. What were you going to do? You're president. Are you really going to get up in Jim Acosta's face? I don't know that he was in fact going to do that, so I can only speculate. But if you see how aggressive he was acting, and he left the podium, was presumably headed towards Jim Acosta, what were you going to do? Were you going to get in his face and tell him to take this outside? This is the president of the United States, and this is behavior that is absolutely just appalling to me. Now, look, I'm not one to tone police Donald Trump or talk about how I care so much about decorum. At the end of the day, I don't give a shit about that because the policy substance is what matters. But at the same time, just from a human level, to see this play out, holy shit. it looked as if he was going to confront Jim Acosta face to face. Wow. Now, that wasn't the only instance where he was kind of going toe-to-toe with reporters, and he's usually aggressive with reporters, but certainly more so this time than ever. And here's an example of some other exchanges he had that were just really painful to watch.
Peter, what are you trying to be him? Sit down, Peter. You just have to sit down, please. Sit down. I didn't call you. I didn't call you. I'll give you voter suppression. Take a look at the CNN polls, how inaccurate they were. That's called voter suppression. Very hostile. It's such a hostile media. It's so sad. You ask me about, no, you rudely interrupted him.
You called yourself a nationalist. Some people saw that as emboldening white nationalists. Now people are also saying
I don't know why you'd
that
say
the
that. That's such a racist
There
question.
are some people that say that now the Republican Party is seen as supporting white nationalists because of your rhetoric. What do you make of that?
I don't believe it. I don't know. Why do I have my highest poll numbers ever with African Americans? Why do I have among the highest poll numbers with African Americans? I mean, why do I have my highest poll numbers? That's such a racist question. Honestly, I mean, I know you have it written down and you're going to tell me. Let me tell you, it's a racist question.
Yeah. I mean, in response to the reporter asking the question, if him calling himself a nationalist was kind of a nod to white nationalists, he essentially said, no, you. That was his response. I'm not racist. You're racist. So, I mean, understandably, he's having a really bad day, and he's wearing it on his sleeve. You can see that he is visibly irritable. He doesn't like the fact that, the press is trying to challenge him. And look, as human beings, we all have shitty days where we're just not in the mood. But, I mean, to go at the press like that is really something. Wow. Now, additionally, that wasn't the only part of Donald Trump's post-election rampage, because as you all know, he fired Jeff Sessions. Now, you're going to look at certain headlines and it's going to say that Jeff Sessions resigned, but I want to get to Jeff Sessions' letter that he submitted to the president. It says, quote, "Dear Mr. President, at your request, I am submitting my resignation." So make no mistake about it. If you are submitting your resignation at the request of the president, you're being pushed out. He's essentially being fired. I mean, if you're a boss and you really, really, really want to fire one of your employees, but you want to make sure that you don't have to pay them severance, what do? You get them to quit. And that's essentially what Donald Trump did here, just on a national presidential level. Now, this has a lot of people torn, right? Because on one hand, we should all theoretically be ecstatic because Jeff Sessions is someone who is perhaps the worst attorney general we've seen in a really long time. He's definitely the worst in my lifetime. But at the same time, we have to be mindful of the fact that Donald Trump didn't fire Jeff Sessions because he doesn't like the performance of Jeff Sessions with regard to what he's doing as Attorney General, because he's thrilled with the policies that Jeff Sessions has been implementing and the direction that he's taken the Justice Department in, towards a more draconian approach to, the law. But with that being said, we all know that Donald Trump wanted Sessions gone because he's trying to shield himself and potentially undermine the Mueller investigation in the event Mueller finds that Trump has illegal business dealings and wants to indict Trump for some reason. So this is basically a way to cover his ass. I think that's pretty apparent to anyone who is even just the most casual observer of politics. He's obviously trying to cover his ass. It started back when Jeff Sessions recused himself from, the Russia investigation and the Mueller investigation and whatnot. And Trump got someone on there, Jeff Sessions, who he thought would be loyal. And look, Jeff Sessions has been loyal to Trump. He was one of the earliest supporters of Donald Trump within the Republican Party. And when it comes to this issue, though, something that may legally impact Donald Trump in a negative way, Jeff Sessions wasn't there for Donald Trump, and that's why he had to go in Trump's view. So look, what we're seeing is the rampage of Donald Trump the day after he lost an election, and this is only the start. I think that this kind of sends us the signal that we are going to see a more petulant, more tyrannical version of Donald Trump, because he will grow increasingly irritable if Democrats, using the authority that they now have, controlling the House, to subpoena documents and do what they say they're planning to do and drown him in investigations. I mean, if they actually do that, if he can't get anything from his policy agenda through, he's going to get absolutely a lot more unbearable to deal with and insufferable to listen to. He's going to act even more bratty than he's already been acting. And look, to be fair, I hope that Democrats do stifle Donald Trump's agenda and, drown him with all of these different investigations and whatnot. And quite frankly, I hope that they obstruct. Am I confident that Democrats will effectively combat Donald Trump's policy agenda? No, I'm not, because what we've seen thus far, it's not too encouraging, right? But here's what they should be doing. They should be also simultaneously putting forward a really strong agenda to contrast with what the Republicans have been doing. But getting back to Donald Trump, if this is what we're seeing just one day after he lost some power, then we're going to be in for a long 2 years, because it's going to get a lot worse. And look, in some ways, he should feel relieved, and he's kind of expressed this and alluded to this on Twitter. He should feel relieved because I don't feel like this election was the repudiation of Donald Trump that we were all hoping for on the left. I mean, certainly you can make the case for or against that, but I mean, it wasn't a blowout, right? It wasn't a blue tsunami, which we were all hoping. So Donald Trump, he has some reasons to be a little bit thankful, but at the same time, the fact that he lost the House and Republicans lost control of the House, it's just not going to bode well for his agenda. And certainly, with Democrats being able to subpoena Republicans and documents, it doesn't look too good for him. And if we're seeing him react this way just one day after the election, I'll say it again, this is going to get pretty damn interesting over the next couple of years, because he's going to be really, really tyrannical and downright insufferable if he doesn't, in fact, get everything that he wants. So, we have that to look forward to.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.